We're with John Rafanello, and John is the mastermind and creator of WonderWorld. John, I'd like to have you start by talking about how you got into, thinking about how to transform the way that humanity is moving forward. And particularly, maybe you could start with talking about your understanding about the sort of family power structure in the world, the major families that are largely responsible for running things.
Well, my father was a bookie, Big Johnny Raff, one of the funnest characters you ever want to meet in your life. He would do the Jackie Gleason strut, and he was generous to a fault. And he told me when I was a kid that there were 7 families that ruled and controlled the finances of the world. And I said, yeah, sure, Pop. But over the years, I discovered that he was actually correct. And the fascinating thing was, of course, that the subject gets into immense complexity if you spend years studying it. But after, I guess, about 40, 50 years of studying the subject, I boiled it down to a line of incredible simplicity. Apparently, if the story goes back to Egypt, where there were a group of people who realized that if they controlled the finances of a country or the world, they would literally control the world, and that became their primary objective. And as the story goes, the Pharaoh in Egypt eventually found out what they were attempting to do and had most of them killed.
Terminated with extreme prejudice.
Terminated with extreme prejudice. The small group that remained or survived or escaped this termination formed what we now know as the first secret society, the Illuminati. And the concept was here, what they began to teach over the years, this evolved over the years, but they were eventually teaching their kids, their offspring, that they were the illuminated ones, that they had lived many lives and other people had not. And hence it was their duty and their right to rule the rest of the world for their own good, right? And in some senses, this is a very legitimate concept if you buy the premise that they were the illuminated ones and the rest were not. So that was the premise, or the religious belief, if you will, that formulated through this secret society. And their prime objective became to control the finances of the world. Well, you can track the history, which is quite fascinating, but the grand prize in more modern times was the United States of America.
Why?
Well, because they were the most wealthy country in the world, for one thing. They were also the country that was producing the most goods and services for the average individual. They were creating a quality of life for the individual that was relatively not available in the rest of the world, although today much of the world has copied that. And there was an experiment of allowing the individuals to be free and go off and create using their own uniqueness to better themselves in the world, which resulted in all kinds of new goods and services. And hence the average individual lived better than the kings of old in terms of what they had and what they could do, right? They had televisions, cars, and transportations, and airplanes, and couches, and televisions, and little video cameras, and that you couldn't get anywhere else. So that was a prime objective. Now, one of the primary ways in which what became the banking cartel was an outgrowth of these secret societies, such as the Bilderberger Group, the Illuminati, the Trilateral Commission, the lesser societies like the Skull and Bones Society, these sorts of things. But basically, there's a lot of controversy around whether these conspiracy theories are correct or not. But it's obvious that there was a force of banking cartel controlling the finances of the world. Through Rothschild sent his sons into Germany and the United States and Japan with the purpose of creating a central bank which would eventually control all of the money. And one of the primary ways of gathering control of the money, or gathering all of the money, was to promote conflict among the nations and then finance the conflict.
On both sides.
On both sides. If you look at World War II as a more modern example, the Japanese, the Germans, the Russians, the Americans were all financed by the same banks, by the same banking cartel. They literally financed the war on all sides.
Also England?
Also England. Which gave them what? That put the country in tremendous debt to the banking cartel. And the basic plan for a country, we're going to use the United States as an example, was to have the national debt increase until it exceeded the gross national product of the nation. Right? So in other words, the debt was greater than the wealth of the country, and then they would foreclose. But of course, if they were to foreclose openly, you would have a tremendous revolution and tremendous upheaval. So the strategy was brilliant, tremendously brilliant. For instance, there are many factors to it, but the gold standard was removed. The silver standard. At one time in the United States, there were three currencies. The gold certificate, redeemable in actual gold, the silver certificate, redeemable in silver, and a United States note, which was redeemable in real goods and services. All of those were eroded and replaced by what we call the Federal Reserve note that we have in our pocket today. What they did was to, first of all, remove the ability of that piece of paper to be exchanged for real goods and services. That was the first thing, or one of the things in the plan. Then they rewrote the War Powers Act in the United States. There was a War Powers Act that was designed to shift all of the power into the executive division during times of war, so that the president didn't have to consult with the Congress and the Senate in order to take vital actions during an actual war.
So the president could simply do an executive order?
Yes, yes. That War Powers Act was rewritten in small print to include financial disasters of a sufficient magnitude. In other words, if there was a sufficient magnitude of a financial disaster within the country, the War Powers Act could be enacted, giving the president almost king-like absolute powers for a particular period of time. So they orchestrated that. They set the groundwork for that. Using the think tanks, they basically brought in brilliant minds, in order to accomplish this. Now, all of those were under the idea of making a better world, which in some senses the New Order was. They felt they were responsible for making sure that the world was okay, but they were doing it through very nasty means.
Well, certainly doing it through keeping control over the process to themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what occurred is, and there's, we could go on for hours with this, but the basic simplicity, I'm trying to get a simple line that goes from these guys wanted to control the finances of the world. They set the stage for being able to do so. And during the Roosevelt administration, the national debt exceeded the gross national product, and the stage was set for the banking cartel to foreclose on the loan.
Was that 33?
I don't know the exact date. I'm lousy with dates, but it is a matter of congressional record that the United States went into bankruptcy during the Roosevelt administration, and literally all of the assets of the country went into the hands of the banking cartel. Okay. Now, there's no real shake-up. This is not something that the American public was aware of, because that was also part of the brilliant plan. What they did was they created a corporation called the United States of America, all capital letters. They created a fictitious identity for every man, woman, and child on the earth. Instead of John Rafanello, large J, John, I forgot how to spell my name, John. It was capital, instead of capital J, small Hon, it became John, all capitals, Rafanello, all capitals, for every man, woman. This was a fictitious creation, a legal entity, a corporate entity, a contractual entity that was orchestrated into existence. It's a fictitious straw name. But through contractual law, what they did was they locked everyone into that system. When you got a driver's license or you got your Social Security card, it locked you into this artificially created construct.
Where is it defined that there is this artificial construct that's been set up? Is that set up in some documentation?
In the Uniform Commercial Code, which you can get the book, which defines the maritime law, which is actually the law which is going on in the courts. And you'll see the American flag, and you will see it with a gold trim on it. The gold trim is an indication of maritime law.
What does that mean?
That means like the captain in a ship has absolute dictatorial power, like a judge in a court. He is a king in that court and has the power to rule all by himself. He's essentially, in one sense, although, again, you don't put that out as an obvious thing, but he is a king.
Who's
He's
the
a
he?
dictator. Huh?
The he is the
The
president.
judge.
The judge in
the
that
judge
court.
in a court. You go in a court, the judge makes the pronouncement.
Okay.
You know, he can weigh the evidence, but he essentially has the power to make the decision.
And this is encoded in maritime
It's in
law?
maritime, the captain of the ship has absolute power over the ship. Maritime is a ship law.
You're right.
And the captain has
And
the right to hang or have him walk the plank, anybody in the ship. He has absolute power.
But how is that applicable to the court system? I mean, is it that the court system assumed maritime law, or that within maritime law it said that this is now applicable in the U.S. court
Okay,
system?
what you have to realize is that when all of the assets of the country went into the hands of the banking cartel, all of the assets went in.
Including
that includes
the courts,
the police system, the military, the Navy, the Army. It's all, they own it all now. They own it. They literally own it.
And that receivership is codified where?
That's in the Unified Commercial Code. It's codified. It's codified in the congressional records that the United States went into bankruptcy at those particular times.
Okay.
But all of this is real fascinating, and I've studied it, and you can get pissed off, and you can do all of those sort of things, and that's where you fall into the trap. Okay. You know, a practical example is my wife and I were driving across up north one time, and the engine of our car blew up, and real long story short, we went to the mechanic, and he said it isn't worth repairing the car. It's going to cost more to repair it than it's worth. I just put $3,800 worth of parts in the car, and I said, well, let's at least take the parts out and sell them. He says, you can't. I said, why not? He says, it's not your car, and they're not your parts. What the hell are you talking about? Right? Well, again, this is a long detail of sorting out that the guy was actually right. You had to have a license to sell the car and a license to sell the parts. What happened when the car was made at Detroit, a certificate that represented the goods and services was given to the DMV. The DMV then issues you a pink slip, and you think a pink slip is the ownership of your car. Read the small print and go into the Unified Commercial Code, and you will find that it is permission to use their car. Right? Right? It's all, the ownership is artificial. Now, the banking cartel would be stupid to put out the idea that you don't own anything, because that would break down the motivation and drive and spirit of the individual ownership.
Is that also true of houses?
Yes, it's true of every single asset in the United States. At the time of the bankruptcy, at the time of the transfer of wealth into the hands of the bankers, what they did was they made a loan to the United States in terms of, it was I believe, $780,000 for every registered man, woman, and child in the United States. They made a loan so that the country could run. Obviously, they owned all the assets, they owned all the money, the country couldn't run. So they made a loan. That loan was collateralized against an indentureship, a 30-year indentureship of every man, woman, and child in the United States. You go, how could they indenture them? Through the tax system, the fees that you pay to the IRS. They could raise those to 100% if they wanted to. Of course, they're not going to, because it would destroy the operation of the individuals in the system. But they literally own it and have indentured the labor. And that was the collateralization against the initial loan of about $730,000 per every registered man, woman, and child in the United States.
So that was sometime in the 30s, and that was for a 30-year?
Yeah, they indentured them for 30 years. The
And
next time it was $1 million.
What happened?
When they recollateralized.
And when was that?
That, I don't, 30 years later, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, sometime in the 60s.
In the 60s, something, right. Dates I'm lousy with.
Okay.
I'm not real
not a
good
problem.
with dates.
But so
But
what
here, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Here's what?
Here's the essence of the whole thing. As I study these various things, I go, oh, how evil, oh, how this. And it isn't. It's brilliant. Based on their mindset, the idea that it is their duty and right to control the rest of the world. Based on that mindset, they orchestrated it beautifully into existence. Mm-hmm. They gained control of all the financial systems, all of the radio, television, media, with the exception of individuals who created their own little
niches.
Niches, right? They own the court system, they own the military, they own the police, right? The police don't know that they're owned, right? But they are controlled through this. Now, that was brilliant. Now, here's the point. They were attempting to pull off what they wanted to pull off. Everybody does what they do because they think it will get them what they want. Right? Yeah. Everybody does what they're going to do because they think it'll get them what they want. What they wanted was control of the world for the world's benefits and also to fulfill the belief system that it was their right and their duty. They were the kings of old.
The illuminated ones.
The illuminated ones.
Yeah.
And if you buy into that philosophy, if you were to validate it as true, it would make sense. It wasn't true. But the kids were brought up in the belief that it was true, just like any religion. Do you believe that you have the right and the power? Yes, we do. We're brought up with it. We were programmed with it. And that program, by the way, is incredibly vicious. That's another story. But here's
Can you take like a minute or so talking about the programming?
Oh, I don't. That gets into such esoteric things, but they were mind control slaves. It was done with drugs, pain, drugs, hypnosis, all sorts of. Even the kids were even to some degree drugged and tortured in the womb. There was programming technology that came out of some of the German and Russian research during and previous to World War II, and some of that technology was used to create what was called a compartmentalization, where a portion of the brain was actually compartmented off, so that they could trigger that Manchurian Candidate-wise and control the individual. In other words, they didn't have conscious ability to run out the programming. It was literally built into the dendrite structure of the brain.
So are you saying then that the parents program their own kids?
Absolutely.
This is not pleasant.
It is not it's some very, very nasty stuff. And that doesn't mean that all these people are nasty. Some of them are really humanely oriented. But some of them are very nasty. Mm-hmm. Just like you go see a movie and you got a small percentage of criminals who are willing to do anything to get the money that they want. But the larger percentage isn't willing to go to those lengths to get what they want.
So taking this as a basis then, what do you see as the best way forward to create a world that really is the place that we all dreamed of when we were little, and we're looking ahead in our lives to fulfilling some dream, each one of us?
How do you create a paradise? How do you create utopia? That's a question I've been asking all of my life as I learned and studied with geniuses and crackpots all over the world, trying to figure out which was which. Here's my answer. It's based on this particular principle. Most people want to oppose and change this when they learn about it.
This system that you've
This
just
system
described.
I've just, okay. When you oppose somebody's point of view, be it an individual or a group, they will defend that point of view to the death. Right? Opposing people's points of view, opposing the New World Order, opposing the people of the Illuminati and the Bilderberg groups is not a workable technology. They have phenomenal amounts of power in the real world, and they will defend their point of view. They will just crush you. I invite you to go watch a movie called The Formula with George C. Scott and Marlon Brando to show you how effortlessly they will defeat any attack against them. You know, they own the whole system, the courts, the police system. You know, all of these forces. Yes, they will allow all sorts of apparent freedom here and there, as long as it doesn't impinge upon their control.
The core of the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you do this? What do you do? The key is that the only true gain is an increase in awareness. This is true for any individual. As their awareness increases of the truth of life and mechanics and physics and chemistry and metaphysics and quantum physics, and as their awareness increases, their ability to manipulate the physical reality increases with that.
So learning how things work.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You're expanding your awareness. My view is the only way we will handle the people in control is for us to initiate things that cause them to become aware of things they were not aware of before. And one of the things to become aware of is that in supporting the individual uniqueness of every man, woman, and child on the earth, that the quality of their life will exceed anything. It will exceed their wildest imagination. If they were to come to that belief system, that in supporting the freedom and in coordinating the freedom of everybody on earth, that the quality of their life would increase far beyond anything they knew before, then they have a vested interest to support that movement.
So present a very clear, simple argument why this is the case, why it is true indeed that improving the quality of life of every and the full development of the human capabilities of every human being is going to improve the quality of life of the people now controlling the system and controlling a very large amount of the resources.
Well, that's what my WonderWorld project is designed to do.
Well, first, before you go into I want to know what the rationale is.
The quality of my life sitting right here in front of you is directly proportional to the quality of the life of everybody else. This shirt that I am wearing does not have little strings on it. Actually, this one has a couple of little strings on it. So it wasn't made with love and caring and precision, like some of the ones are done in the old days. In other words, the quality of this shirt, the quality of this belt, the quality of these pants, the quality of these shoes, the quality of that particular camera, and which are all part of my life, is proportional to how well all of the people who made those things did and how much they cared to produce a valuable product or a valuable service that served everybody. So and as I become aware that the quality of my life is proportional to that, it blows me away.
Yeah. So your personal response to this is to create the concept and develop the design for WonderWorld.
Yes. What the idea, I thought for years, how do you do this? Do you do it through religions? Do you do it through educational systems? All of those have failed. What you need is, in my opinion, or what could be workable in my opinion, instead of need. Need is the concept of how do you pull off what it is you're trying to pull off. Well, you got to see that it is in their vested interest. So my idea was to use entertainment as a vehicle to raise the awareness of what brings about the life that you want. Hitler wanted to create a master race, right? Nice concept, ideally, but he was saying all of these other people are the enemies of the master race, so we're going to wipe out the Jews. In other words, he mentally created an enemy, rather than the increased awareness that the quality of his life was proportional to everybody else. Killing off all the Jews is going to screw up a lot of your economy, right? Yeah. It doesn't work.
And intellectual capability and creativity and many other things. Yeah.
Exactly. You got to bring a person to, not to the philosophical, nice philosophical concept that the quality of our life is proportional to everybody else, to the actual moment-to-moment, day-to-day realization. I was in a grocery store years ago. I used to buy these little can of virgin peas. I like the idea that they were virgin peas to start out with. Oh, cool. Little run can of virgin peas. It kind of like had a sensual excitement to it, and I would buy it. Plus, they tasted great. And one day I went into the grocery store, picked up the can of peas, and this was many, many years ago, so this was, and it said $1.87. I went, $1.87? What a ripoff for a little runt can of peas. If I were to translate that to today's prices, it would have been $18.75 for a little can of peas. I was outraged. I went running around like a madman in the store trying to find a manager to dramatize how unethical this was to charge this amount of money for this little runt can of peas. Well, I couldn't find anybody, and I started talking to myself. One part, the good part, and the good John and the bad John was sort of like the old devil on one side and the angel on the other side. The angel was going, "John, you're upset." I go, "Yeah, I am upset. Of course I'm upset. $1.87 for this damn can of peas. But John, you're the one who's upset." "Yeah, well, John, do you really want to be upset?" "Of course I don't want to be upset, but I got to be upset because $1.80. And I kept going back and forth. And finally the good voice went out and said, "Okay, good, I don't want to be upset." And the good voice asked this question: what did it take to put this can of peas on the shelf? And I went into a meditation. I saw farmers in bed, comfortably under the covers, and a rooster starts screaming. And they got to get up out of bed, and they got to go out, and they're going to hoe the ground, and they're going to handle the disease, and they're going to handle the bugs, and then it expanded into people getting ore out of the ground, and then that ore being geniuses working out how to transform that ore into tin, and then the machines that were made to make the tin cans, and then the designs of the Jolly Green Giants who advertised the thing, and then there's the truck drivers who are delivering the cans and it went on and on and on, like thousands and thousands of images. And then all of a sudden I came back in the present time in the grocery store with a can of peas in my hand at $1.87, looked at it and went, "My God, what a bargain." Right? And I was thrilled to pay $1.87 because I saw all of the contribution, that the quality of all of these people contributed to that, me having this succulent can of virgin sensuous peas.
So tell us now about WonderWorld.
Okay. WonderWorld is billed as a living invitation to make life wonderful, coupled to all the know-how to pull it off. Literally, it is entertaining people into how wonderful life can be. Disneyland is promoted as the happiest place on earth because people go there and they get happy. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's a dramatization of all kinds of music and aesthetics and beautifulness and landscaping, and it's a reflection of an ideal life. WonderWorld takes that to another quantum leap. It entertains people into the idea of what paradise would look like. It enables them to actually experience what paradise would be like at a quantum leap from Disneyland. It's designed to be the next quantum leap in theme parks. And not only does it entertain, inspire, enlighten in that order, but it also provides a connection to the know-how that enables people to fulfill their dreams for the benefit of themselves and everyone else.
Give me a concrete example, say, of one of the pavilions.
One of the pavilions is called Emotions. Emotions. Emotions obviously either get in our way and prevent us from fulfilling a dream, or they catapult us forward. If we got fear, we don't tend to move forward. If we're apathetic, we don't move forward. It's next to death. An apathetic person says, well, here's another promotional video that Norrie is making with her camera, and I suppose it'll go somewhere and somebody will see it, but if they don't see it, it won't make any difference. If we do it, if we make the world better, it'll be the same. Right? Emotion, emotion, emotion. If you get excitement, exhilaration, even conservatism, oh, here's how we go about it, then the person moves forward. In WonderWorld, there is outside the emotions pavilion, there's this huge spiral that is coming out of the ground, several stories below the ground, and is rotating all the way up to the top, and it is dramatizing all of the base emotions, shame, blame, regret, apathy, fear, anger, antagonism, and moving up into exhilaration, enthusiasm, peace of mind, the peace that passes all understanding. You move into the pre-show in the emotions pavilion, and you find yourself literally surrounded. It's a huge oval room, and all the way around you, the gamut of human emotions are being projected from the most base up to the most glorious. And then the doors of the pre-show close, and the show of emotions comes to a climax. It shuts off, and a beautiful woman, momentarily the room goes pitch black. You go, whoa, you know, and then a beautiful woman materializes in the middle of the room, rotating. We hope to use Jerry Ryan, who played 7 of 9 in the Star Trek series.
Is this holographically?
It's holographic. Mm-hmm. Here she is called One of One, and she addresses the audience in this pre-show, and she says to them, first of all, we wish to assure you that there was no devious intent in creating the course that you are about to experience. It was simply that the elders realized that Earth was on the threshold of openly accepting aliens from other worlds, but was not quite ready to do so. Hence it was decided that we would blend unobtrusively in your culture to assist you with your decision to one day be part of the United Association of Worlds. In order to do this, we had to know how humans created their emotions. Hence, Professor Feeling, who is here today, created for us this Emotions Mastery course. You will be the first humans ever to experience this course. And once again, we wish to assure you that there never was any devious intent in creating this course, and she vanishes. See, our Hollywood media has portrayed aliens as evil, nasty creatures.
For the most part.
For the most part, with the exception of E.T. and a few movies. In the actual truth of the matter, and I'm not going to try to say how I know this, but the truth of the matter is that the universe is filled with beings magnificent beyond belief. There are more stars than there are grains of sand on every beach on this planet. The number of wonderful, evolved, fantastically beautiful beings is amazing. The number of Disneylands that exist out there that are created by some individual is astounding. But Earth doesn't know that because they've been oriented to be afraid, because the banking cartel's primary purpose was to invite people to be afraid. That's the primary purpose of the news. The Oklahoma bombings.
Wait. And so the purpose of making people afraid is to be able to manipulate those emotions?
Very easy to manipulate, very easy to control. For instance, and this is part of conspiracy theory, and I'm not going to, I'm not asking you to believe anything you don't believe, but the Oklahoma bombings, the shootings in the schools had primary one purpose, and people were orchestrated to do that. The purpose was to bring America to the point where they didn't consider any place safe anymore. And in our sense, it wasn't safe. Their freedoms could be eroded so that the government could protect them from the fears that they invited them into. But another story.
So,
let me finish the emotions pavilion.
Please.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're in the emotions pavilion, right? And you go in to this theater. You sit down in the theater, very comfortable, very luxurious plush theater. And as the production begins to move, the whole theater turns on a carousel. And the curtains open with you as the carousel is turning, and you meet this wild Christopher Lloyd type of creature who is teaching a class of aliens what humans have to think in order to experience and feel the emotions that they have. He's teaching them so they can blend unobtrusively into the human culture to assist them with their decision to become part of the United Socialist. And he says, value! Value, value is the key. Humans value things like we all do. They value their watch, they value their money, they value their loved one, they value their house. And when they have the idea that the value might go away, they feel fear. When they have the idea that the value that they seek might not come, they feel fear. They feel anxious. If they value their arm and they have the idea that a tiger is about to rip it off, they feel terror. The intensity of their fear increases. If they have the idea that the value is gone and lost, they feel grief. It is the idea that the value is absent that produces the grief. If they have the idea that someone else is preventing them from getting the value that they seek, they get angry. And if they have the idea that the value is present, they feel joy. Now this is a dissertation on me. With him, it's all being done with music, spirit of play, laughter, fun. He has the Angry Dogs 4 who are singing about anger. He has the Shame, Blame, and Regret Quartet. Right? One's got two heads, so it's a quartet. Shame, Blame, and Regret. Right? He has the high-toned gospel singers. And people are getting, through an entertainment, the idea of the thoughts that they create that produce the emotions that either prevent them from achieving their dreams or catapult them forward like a catalyst. And they move up a spiral into the higher toned emotions with the high toned gospel singers singing the glory of being, enthusiasm, the joy of heaven, portraying the majesty of having all of the things that you value actually being achieved, dramatizing the idea that the true purpose of our lives is to have the thrill, the ongoing thrill of having our fondest desires fulfilled, not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of all mankind. All done musically, beautifully, Disney quality. They then exit into a hands-on area of computer games and interactive software programming that enable them to play with the thoughts that create their own emotions, that either prevent them from going forward or catapult them forward. They can even connect into the WonderWorld University of the Air, and at home do an emotions mastery program laced with a spirit of play and fun that entertains them into a mastery of their own emotions. And this is but one pavilion in WonderWorld.
How many pavilions are there altogether?
There are 3 main pavilions in Phase 1. There are 6 main pavilions in Phase 2, and then there are a series of lands built around what is called Multiversity Lake. Multiversity is the concept of the infinite number of possible realities and universes that our mind creates.
To what degree have you designed these pavilions and these various zones?
All the conceptual designs are completed in quite a bit of detail. There are 27 feature films that support.
Those have treatments or scripts?
They have treatments, scripts, or outlines.
Okay.
Right.
Now, where are you now in the process? You've written a book, right?
I've written a book.
What's it called?
It's called An Invitation to WonderWorld.
Can you show folks a copy of what that looks like here?
This is it. An Invitation to WonderWorld.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's got a picture of me, cleaning up well.
When did this come out?
It's been out about a year. It's available through our internet site at WonderWorldOnline.com. WonderWorldOnline.com.
Okay. And at some point we'll figure out with this new little flip cam how to post in the URL for people.
Okay.
And then you also, I believe, have some training CDs or something that you've done fairly recently.
Oh yeah, I've got all kinds of Johnny Rabb. I did seminars for years, and now I'm beginning to redo them all based on all of the new things that I have learned. But let me give you a quick summary of other things in WonderWorld, because they really impact on what's going on, if I can do that.
Sure. Okay.
You got different lands. One of the lands is called the Galaxy Swings.
Yeah. Just a quick note here. We've done 45 minutes so far.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So give them real sort of quickly and let people go to your site. I mean, isn't the information, a lot of the information at the website?
Some of it. It's not all there. We're developing it. Okay, the Galaxy Swing. This is Mama's Galaxy Restaurant. Mm-hmm. At the entrance it says, fine food and good service, a tradition in 7 galaxies for over 1 million years. Right. The Galaxy Swings area is dedicated to fun, music, and a spirit of play. You will meet, for instance, the Dixieland Robot Ramblers. Right. The idea in this area is that we break down the barriers by marrying the familiar and the unfamiliar. So you have Dixieland and robots, the familiar and the unfamiliar. You have the Alien 4 Quartet, 4 of the weirdest looking aliens you ever want to see, but they sing traditional 4-part barbershop harmony. You've got the Alien Country Singers of the Warp Drive Symphony Orchestra. Next to that, that's one land, and again, I've only touched on it.
Well, the thing is that we don't really have the time here to go into it, but for people who are interested, where can they go for more information, and how can they get involved if there's something that they maybe have to contribute to helping to move this forward?
The most contributing thing they can do to start with, and the simplest thing and the most inexpensive, is to buy and read the book and invite other people to do so also.
How much is the book?
The book is $39.95 because I had to self-publish it, and it cost about $28 a book at this particular point in time.
And then plus shipping and handling?
Plus shipping and handling, $2-3 more, right?
Yeah.
And if they buy it on the internet site, I make $12 or something. If they buy it through Amazon, I make 8 cents. So I would prefer.
So folks can help you out by reading the book.
By reading the book. Anybody who wants to contribute, I mean, we're going to need every type of person there is. Obviously now we need connections to people that could potentially pull us off.
Right.
Billionaires who know other billionaires who can connect us in. My ideal scene is that it would be built as part of Disney World. An additional theme park.
Now you were involved in building the Epcot Center, right?
I was involved in ensuring that the Epcot project came in on time, on the date that the executives.
What was your role there?
I was hired to make sure it happened. What occurred was they had advertised when it was going to open. Disney did. The executives were scared to death that they would not open at that time because they were way behind schedule. I was hired to ensure that it did.
And did it?
It did. I went to the head of the scheduling department as an example to ask him where the project was. He was bent over his desk with a huge flow chart. I introduced myself. He didn't even look up. He stuck out his hand like this. I asked him where the project was at. He pointed to a poster up above his desk. Never said a word. On the poster, which had been done by one of the artists over at the studio, in beautiful multicolored grand calligraphy, it said, Opening Ceremonies Epcot, and showed a tractor pulling a pyramid of water skiers across the dirt lake. That's where he predicted they would be at opening day. They were that far behind. And what I did was, the reason they were that far behind was because the creative department was warring with the engineering department, and the engineers would begin to plug something into concrete, and the creators wanted to change it, and there were all of these upsets going on. So I simply went from one person to another going, do you want to have a miserable work day or a joyful one? Take your pick. Miserable, you already got down pat. You don't need me. Right? I got them back into joy. They're marvelously phenomenal people. It opened on time. Railings were being soldered as the dignitaries were coming in on opening ceremonies. Wells were being cooled and then sanded and then dried and then painted, and the paint was dried. Yeah, but it opened. It opened on time.
Oh, that's great. That must have been enormously satisfying. So what you could say here then is you have quite a track record in helping manifest big projects.
Yes, and in manifesting individual projects. I've been a per one-to-one consultant and a seminar leader. I taught seminars in order to learn the subject that I was attempting to teach.
And if people are interested in doing some consulting with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Through the internet site's the easiest one.
Okay.
They can email me at my email is wonderfunsite, WONDERFUNSITE @hotmail.com. But one thing I want to say is this is United Worlds. In the theme park, there are two huge areas. Right? There's the land of the dragons, in which you can discuss wisdom and philosophy with dragons. There is Long, Long Ago with a 1,400-year-old codger, old Doc Fowler. There is Atlantis and the water humans, where you can learn love and attract the dolphins to come and swim with you. And then there are two areas, one called United Worlds and United Earth. And in United Worlds, aliens are teleporting in, their ships are landing. You can sit around at the Crash Saucer Salad Bar with them and discuss answers to all of the problems that Earth had. They're claiming they had all the problems too and found the answers. In United Worlds, this is where we're going to change the world. There's a theatrical production there. There is what is called the path-clearing technologies, the path-clearing theater. And here we dramatize that it is in the interest of the vested interests, that it is in the interest of the powers that be to support the unified, coordinated freedom of every individual. It is in their interest to empower the uniqueness of the individual to the point where that uniqueness is actually manifested for the benefit of the individual and all mankind. These theatrical productions are wonderful. They're not designed to impose, they're designed to increase an awareness of how grand life could be if you support it all.
So make people aware of the possibilities.
Yes.
Okay.
And the actual technologies for pulling it off.
And then, yes.
In the theme park, you have the theme park will be the first theme park ever to have a university as part of the theme park. And it's called WonderWorld Multiversity. And in the theme park, you have the dramatization of connecting to all of the know-how and the level of consciousness necessary for us to actually pull off, to cease warring with each other, to cease opposing other people's viewpoints, to realize that their viewpoints are viewpoints. They are one of the ways life could be created, one of the ways life could be experienced. It might not be your point of view, but it's a valid way. And if you oppose it, you're only going to have a war game with your wife, your kids, your teacher, your boss. You don't oppose it. What you do is you present an expanded way in which both of you can win even more than you're winning already. Right?
So if you would want people to take away one thing from this interview that we've just done, what would that be?
We are going to arrive at the paradise.
Okay.
We have the know-how. We have the power. We can arrive.
And it's going to be fun.
And it's going to be fun. The trip is going to be fun. Arriving.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
This is John Rafanello from WonderWorld.